going here. I got it 2 minutes, so bear with us here and start promptly at 1 o'clock Central. Dave, you're going to have to help me get the hookup with the Hudley cam. Digging that camera.
This is the go. I need the IQ now.
You can send me that old, piece of junk that you don't want anymore, and you can upgrade to the latest and greatest. Okay, with you out there, you want to get us kicked off here?
Here, let's do this.
Awesome.
Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. My name is Gina Spatafor, Trade Show Manager for NEC Display Solutions, and welcome to today's webinar where we're going to be reviewing large format displays. Before I turn it over to the presenters, I just want to go over a few things. All lines have been muted. If you do have questions, feel free to use the chat box and we will address those at the end. I will also open it up for some Q&A at the conclusion. Our presenters today are Adam Sowers and Dave Arnott, product specialists, both part of our NEC Solutions group. And with that, I will hand it over to Adam.
Excellent. Thank you, Gina. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us, or I guess I should say good morning as well, depending on what time zone you play in. So as Gina said, I'm Adam Sowers, Consultant Liaison Manager for the West. And with that, Dave, I want you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adam. Dave Arnott, the Consultant Relations Manager for the East Coast. Thanks for joining us today.
Perfect. With that, we are going to jump in both feet to the deep side of the pool, so to speak. So large format portfolio, this is where we currently stand. Most of you guys are already aware of this, starting at the far left of that E series and then working our way up to the P series. And then, of course, those large series C and V that we've seen great success with. And then our specialty products being the X series High Bright. And then, of course, our UN series video wall. So today we're going to go through those products, as well as we're going to introduce our new standalone signage products, the ME, M, MA, and there's also going to be what we're calling a facelift to those P series products. Just so that everybody's clear, the E series, the large series C and V, as well as those X series High Brights and the UN products are not going away. So just keep that in mind. So I know this a little difficult of a slide to read, but I think it says the picture of where we're trying to go pretty well. Everything really builds on itself. So starting at the top with that E series, 16:7, everything is now going to go to that UHD resolution. And then when we drop down to the ME series, again, 16:7, and what we're really considering good enough. But we're going to give you some added features that we've not seen thus far, like within the E series, to where you're going to now be able to take the ME series and go into portrait mode. You'll have full control versus limited control. And then we're going to also add expandability that we've not had in the past. Dropping down a layer, you'll go into the M series. We're now going to introduce 24/7 as the overall operation rating. We'll add high haze. And again, it builds on itself. So the things that we've talked about with ME series, of course, will carry over. Dropping down another layer, MA series, still 24:7. Now we're going to start adding things like wide color gamut, video output, the SpectraView Engine, audio amp, things of that nature. And then when we start talking about the P series and the facelift that's coming with it later this year, early 2021, of course, that will maintain 24:7, as well as it'll be your overall high brightness panel of 700 nits. So just E series, again, 32 through 65. You'll see those continue to start transitioning over to those UHD features that we've already talked about. New mainstream products. So here's just some pictures of what we're going to talk about today. As you can tell, we're still maintaining those metal chassis, overall thinner depths so that we can help maintain with ADA requirements, but really all the things that you're used to seeing with NEC products. So an important info, in the current series, anything that can be taken from landscape to portrait, you had to do that in a clockwise fashion. Now with the new series, it'll actually be opposite of counterclockwise, and Dave will talk about some features with that as we go on with the presentation. Slides catch up here. Okay. So ME series, again, all UHD panels will be that 43, 50, 55, and 65. 400 nits. Again, we're going to be allowing you to go into portrait orientation with this. 50,000 hours is going to be the backlight lifetime. We're going to do full expandability as far as with SDM and Raspberry Pi. We'll talk about that as we move forward. And then as far as integrated speakers, it will continue that. There are updates as far as quality that we're still working through. You know that some of you have experienced some of the speaker issues we've seen with our current lineup. We hear you on that, and we're working to correct that issue, as well as, again, HDR10 support, and then USB setting copy that Dave will talk about as we go forward. M series. So again, 43, 49, 55, and 65. Now we're talking about that 24/7 runtime. We're adding high haze back into the mix, as well as other features that we've talked about moving forward. So again, same basic connectivity. Again, think of this as building on itself. That's really the point we want to drive home. So, and then we'll finalize with MA series and that facelift to the P series. So again, 500 nit to 700 nit, depending on what series you're talking about. But really things that we want to talk about. No integrated speakers, but we are doing the integrated audio amp. Multi-picture mode, the SpectraView Engine, as well as 8K support through the daisy chain. Again, we'll talk about more of that as we move forward through the presentation. So again, just some of the new feature sets that you're going to see with like MA and P series. As we transition to DisplayPort 1.4, this really gives us some expanded capabilities of what we're able to offer you. So through a single connection using multi-stream protocol, we can give you the exact solution that you're looking at. Or menu boards being fed off of one connection, but having 4 independent sources available to be utilized, again, off of that single connection point of DisplayPort 1.4. So again, just another way of looking this, again, up to an 8K 60 signal that we can now feed through that MA and P series, giving you a total of that 8K resolution through the daisy chain up to 4 displays. Dave, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Adam. Thanks for that. And I just want to let everyone know, me and Adam have done this presentation twice before, and we probably ended up a little bit longer than we should have. And to make sure we value everyone's time, we're kind of trying to run through some of these concepts a little bit quicker than we had in the past. So if there's anything that you need, just reach out to your local rep and be more than happy to answer some questions and get into more in-depth conversations. But we just want to make sure we lay out that groundwork of what we're trying to offer, without getting too much into the details with all of the information that we're trying to cover. So with that, I'll just kind of change gears a little bit and just kind of take a step back. And I do have a mixed audience here today with end users, resellers, consultants. So it's kind of a mix. So just went a little bit for everybody. But you know, when we talk about NEC as a commercial provider of displays versus some of the consumer monitors that are out there, we do get asked that question. It's like, why would I use a commercial monitor? And a lot of times, you know, it's if you just we want to base it just on cost. It's a difficult conversation. But I think some of the things we need to look at is where the commercial unit is a far superior to a consumer unit. And really, I think if you take it into 5 or 6 different specifications, we can kind of go through that quickly. But brightness is one area where consumer television is just that. It's based off a video level. So it's not always at full brightness like a PowerPoint would be in a commercial application. So for brightness and getting through different ambient light situations in different meeting rooms, we need to have a brightness, right? And with commercial displays, we have various amounts of brightness we can supply in the different types of display series. Reflections. Our monitors at home tend to have a very high sheen, high glass, high contrast front, which is great for at night viewing. But if you put them into a situation with lots of ambient light, we can really have very distracting reflections. So something we look at the commercial side and make sure that we offer both high haze and low haze, and we'll talk about that. Color uniformity is something else that obviously important in the commercial world when we get into graphics and marketing. And then uniformity, right? How the picture brightness varies from center to edge, which is the big discrepancy between TV monitors trying to reach certain goals with as far as certifications for let's say Energy Star and what have you. So you can sacrifice some performance in that category. So something to look at as far as the monitor, but have some examples there. But even operation, you know, are they 24/7 rated? Do they have fans? Are they able to put into a recess? Will they be vented properly? A control protocol. Do they have control? Is it just a remote control? How is the commercial integrator designer going to integrate that display in there? And does it have certifications? Does it have control certifications? Is it certified to work with Cisco and Zoom and some of these other different certifications that were out there to make our systems functionality that we know that they're going to be functionality? So an orientation. Most consumer displays are not meant to be put in portrait mode or face up or face down for that matter. So just some of the things that we wanted to kind of look at before we get started. Next slide, Adam. So on this, I think what Adam was, as we said, we build upon ourselves. We've had our E-Series, which really is a commercial company's answer to a consumer television. That's our entry-level E-Series display. And I kind of put this perceived value versus cost in there because the E-Series is just that. It's economical. It has it does what it needs to do, right? It turns on, it turns off, it changes. It has speakers. It has a tuner built into it. So depending on what you need that monitor to do, it can do it very well. And it has a commercial warranty. So one thing I didn't mention on the previous slide. So that's very important. But as we go through, we kind of built onto the ME series, which kind of builds on more feature set. The M series builds upon that. Again, the M is really replacing the V series. And then the MA, we get into advanced features. So the point here is that we're not trying to, the value we're trying to make sure everyone understands that you can't bring the E series in and ask it to do all kinds of things that are way beyond its capabilities, because there will be no value in there. It's not going to do exactly what you need to do. And as I go through my next slides, I'll kind of try to show you how we're adding different features. So we're trying to have a level of display that's going to really, as the consumer or the designer, you just need to find what you need the monitor to do. And hopefully we're going to hit a good price point and there'll be good value in there. And like I tried it with my slide here, you know, if we bring a Volkswagen Jetta, it's an awesome car, great value. But if you brought it to 24 Hours of Daytona or Le Mans, it doesn't bring you any value, right? We're going to be very disappointed. So kind of the analogy I use there. So I'll keep moving on here. Next slide. So we're just going to go through these, and we'll try to kind of go through them quick just for the sense of time. But all of our monitors, we're trying to make the monitor, while we're going to feature spotlight this, we're trying to make not the monitor the spotlight of the application or the room, right? We just want it to be able to walk in and work. We don't need to be fumbling around with remotes or control system, right? We just need it to be able to go on. So in the simplest form, to have all of our monitors be able to see a signal and turn on automatically. It also go into power save mode when the signal is removed. is a basic concept, and I think is a great feature just to make it very automatic to use that display. And that's in all of our series. Next slide. Then as you move up, all the products have first detect. So basically means when we plug in a source, if it was on a different source, it would automatically detect that source and display that source. So that's a good feature. That way there we're not looking, we're plugging in and we're up and running without grabbing a remote or the control system. The next slide. So then when we get into the current C and V series and also the standard V and C that the M and M, E and MA are replacing, you get into what we call last detect. So again, if we've got some kind of content or branding playing on a monitor and it detects the last detected source, it's going to jump to that source. And then also if that was removed, it would jump back. So it would go backwards, which is what the other slide didn't say, right? So it has that ability to then go to the last source. Once that's removed, it'll go back to the original source. So it kind of like auto switching in there. And the next slide. And then as you get into the higher end series, and then really what we were adding into the new ME, which is a great feature, but it's supported by our VP and UN series, is custom detect, which means we can give proprietary to any one of our inputs so that you start to decide if DisplayPort is more important than HDMI. And what I mean by that is, if we have something plugged in and playing, if another source comes in that I want to make sure when it's plugged in always shows on the screen, then that one has proprietary. If we take that removed, we go to the next set. So we can do custom detect for 3 signals, which I think is a very cool feature. Next slide, Adam. We kind of updated our on-screen design. I think we call it a pain point from our customers, is saying that we have so many settings that what do they actually all do? So one of the benefits of NEC is giving you that full control, but then for some of our other users that we don't know what they do, so we've changed. We've given some explanations and descriptions in there to make it a little bit easier to use. The next one, we've always had buttons to be able to control our monitors on the back side of them, which is great, but I think it's a little cumbersome because there's 7 buttons and we can never remember which one does what. We've gone to a joystick a selection knob, so it's going to make that a lot easier when you would have to find the turn on, turn off, change inputs, change settings. And then as you get up in the line, when we talk about the MA and P series, where we're starting to get asked for making sure we have the best color options available, we get into what we call the wide color gamut panel. So basically able to achieve more colors onto your screen. This will make your marketing, advertising, graphics departments very happy. The next slide, something that Adam spoke about, we talked about rotation. So when we get into the M and MA series, we actually added, because we're going in the opposite direction and counterclockwise, but in these is actually a gyro built into it, so it can detect which way it's been turned, and if it's not correct, it will let you know. One of the really main sources for the gyro sensor is also its ability to detect when the display has actually been taken an impact. So again, you can be notified that something in one of your conference rooms has been struck, where we can go now send someone out to go look at that monitor, make sure there's no damage, and they can send out an email to let you know. So kind of an interesting, cool features that adding it on the higher end side. Next slide, Adam. We talked about haze, high haze and low haze. So high haze, low reflectivity, low haze, reflective, very reflective surface. We are very cognizant of this. Most of our panels at the high end are high haze, low reflectivity, but we're also, the ME series will be a low haze panel. So again, it's depending on if that's what you prefer or your environment doesn't require a high haze panel. There's less cost in that. And so we will be offering both going forward, but we find it to be very important to offer the high haze panels. And then just to talk about haze, there's inner haze and outer haze, and not to get too deep, but basically basically what haze does is diffuses the oncoming light to the screen, and we diffuse it in a way that it's not directed back into your eye, hence eliminating the reflection. But when you do that, you're also reflecting the light coming through the panel. And then if we did that in a way, it could actually defocus the image. So we also have to work with an inner haze to keep the the connectivity of the content, right? So we make sure it's very readable. So that's sort of that balance between inner haze and outer haze. So I hope that helped with a couple of our features. Again, if we have any questions on any of those, we have your local rep, call them up, have that discussion with them, and we'll get you to the right display. Thanks, Adam.
All right, thanks, Dave. So we're going to go through some transitions of what we're looking at. Again, on those smaller C series, you can see we're really going to give you two choices. Again, more tools in the toolbox based off of the needs that you need for the particular project that you're working on. And again, just keep in mind that these tentative dates for launch are just that, tentative with the world that we're currently in. There could be some delays to some of these dates as we move forward. Again, as you can kind of see where we're going to go, C series versus ME series, and some of the pros and cons. Things that I would call out is you'll see us start to go away from some of those analog inputs that you've seen in the past. So VGA, RCA, composite, those go away. The positive side of this, again, if we look at C series that we have today, we really have two transition paths that you can go. On the left-hand side, if you go with the ME series, it's pretty close. It's 400 nits. It will be low haze. It'll be 16.7 runtime, but it's going to be an overall lower cost than what you've seen with C series in the past. If you need higher overall nits, we can go with the M series, and then you're going to start seeing those feature sets added. 500 nits, high haze again, 24/7, as well as you're going to have the expandability of SDM as well as RPI that we'll talk about here as we move forward. So again, really tools in the toolbox depending on what you need for the particular project that you're working on. And again, just some transitions as far as what we feel like we're at right now as far as timing. I won't go through these in painstaking detail. But again, to Dave's point, if you have a project that you're working on and you need more details of these items, definitely work with Dave or I or your local rep, and we can help map these out as far as what the transitions are going to look like. And again, just to drive home the point, the large C and V series are not going away. So you see those 75, 86, and 98s going all the way through 2021. Same thing with the V series. Again, we're going to transition those and again, give you choices based off of what feature sets are most important to you. And we'll look at that just like we did with the C series. So again, V series are where we're at today. If you go to the M series, you can see what the potential pros and cons are to that. Or if you say, hey, I really need some added features and functionality, such as loop out, or SDM-S, SDM-L, plus wide color gamut, you can see where the MA series would really get you where you're trying to go based off of those project needs. So same thing here as far as the timing and transition. Again, same note, large V series not going anywhere at 75, 86, and 98 will maintain. Then we talk about the P series. So the P series, really early 2021 or later 2020, you'll see that those transition to some extent. We'll go from a 40-inch to a 43, a 48 to a 49, and then that 55 will maintain. But you'll see also that all of those are now going to that native UHD resolution. Dave, with that, I'll turn it back over to you, my friend.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Great job. All right. So I'm going to cover the UN Generation 2. So we've been doing this video wall, LCD video walls for quite some time. This is our second generation of our UN series. This is some great improvements. There'll be a couple of things I just want to make sure you leave here today to remember. And I want you to remember these pictures. I'm going to come back and talk about these pictures here. These are our InfoComm last year when we introduced these. And when I get to talk about the calibration, I'm going to bring these up again to what we had to what we want to accomplish today. But next slide, Adam. go. All right. So look at the portfolio, the 46-inch panel. So we've got 8 total. 46 is 2 flavors in the 46, and it's basically the bezel's the same at 3.5, but brightness 700 and 500 nits. And I'll kind of tell you why that's important as we move forward in a couple of slides. The 49, same thing, 500 nits and 700 nit options. Then the 55, there's 4 models, and it's going to be a difference between brightness and the bezel. That's the only 2 differences in the 4 models. So you've got a 3.5 millimeter at 500 nits and 700 nits, and then you've got the 55-inch at 0.88 millimeter, a very small bezel, right? So this is the premier group here on the right-hand side. So we'll kind of go on that basis, and we'll get into some of the cool new features. Next slide. All right, so what's new is really what's out of the box. Out of the box uses. What does that mean? We're now calibrating the monitors using our new SpectraView control capabilities at the factory level so that all displays come out matching. So this is not just a best guess. This is not using a set of parameters that'll work for all like we have done in the past. This is each monitor is getting calibrated to a specific and linear settings so that, you know, when I show you the kind of the OSM menu, you can kind of see what we're talking about. On the UN series 55-inch, on the high end UN 551 552, we've gone to the 0.88, and then we've also made improvements to the video wall calibrator if in fact it's needed, or for replacement monitors and what have you. So again, we'll talk about that in the next slides. So the differences, the improvement color management with the SpectraView Engine, that gives us so much, the endless possibilities as far as color matching, because I don't know that there's anything more important besides the mounting and making sure the fit and finish is as good as it can be, but that the uniformity of color and brightness is really what pulls and makes the monitor look the best it can. So not only can we have these calibrated these out from the factory, but we're also the ability to actually calibrate each screen, and not only as one, but actually calibrate parts of the screen, so that we can actually dig down if we needed to, and do a bit better adjustment in different spot adjustments on each display. We've changed our functionality for better HDCP compliance, and so that we'll talk about that as we've now added HDMI for anything that's coming in HDMI. We use HDMI loop out. And the same goes for DisplayPort. We use DisplayPort loop out. HDMI loop out can be used for HDMI 1, the media player, the OPS, and also the DVI input. And then we'll talk about tile cut. Next slide. So if there's one thing that you leave here today after this 45 minutes, is that competitors out of the box kind of look like that slide did, and now that it's transitioned to a fully unified, uniform picture. This is what NEC is now delivering out of the box. If you go back to when I first started this segment, when I talked about the video walls at InfoComm, we had over 80 displays of our 55-inch in that booth. We did not calibrate a one. So no calibration was needed. Those were installed, fit and finish, made sure the bezels were all right, got it wired up, and we were ready to go. And I think that is the game changer that we hear. If you want to go forward one slide on that, Adam. Oh, I'm sorry. It was, go back. So what I'm trying to show you here is in the picture of the OSM is kind of the detailed information that we can calibrate to. And just as a quick advertisement, we're going to change up our webinars for in the next couple of weeks to do a more in-depth webinar just on the UN series. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, Adam. So I won't spend too much time because I kind of went over it, but really the main differences is really getting down to you get different bezels, the connectivity as far as the HDMI loop out and the SpectraView Engine. Really, it brings us to a different level in the LCD video wall game. Next slide, Adam. So just a kind of another way, if you looked at it on the left here, this is what you had after the installer finished their calibration process. They would actually install the units and then calibrate for brightness, gamma, and white point uniformity. What we're doing today is shipping you on site, out of the box, luminance, gamma, and white point uniformity, along with uniformity of each panel, and then the color gamut, so that you should have matching displays, not only in brightness, but in color. So really, the idea is to provide the end customer with the best visual experience. And I think it just shows where NEC is a leader in the video calibration game at this point. Next slide. So I mentioned 500 nits and 700 nits, and the reason I brought that up is because with our new proprietary color engine, we are able to use that function to able to do some constant feedback. And basically what I'm saying is that over time and as they age, it's going to actually be doing some adjustments to backlight adjustments to try to maintain that constant brightness in nit level, so that if you have a 700 nit panel and you don't max it out to its full capacity, there is some room for the monitor to adjust and maintain that overall brightness. And I'll leave that at that for time's sake, but we can certainly get into that in our next webinar. The next slide is, so on this slide here, and I just kind of looking at this, is that the ability to then maintain that constant brightness. So you can see, kind of looking at those charts, if we start out at a lower nit rating, we can actually extend that for quite a few hours before we start to see a degradation of the actual light output. And that's sort of the benefit of what we're doing with SpectraView in a sense. It's almost like a constant brightness type of capability. So I think that's, again, a really value to a customer that can really depend on a constant image over a longer period of time. Next slide, Adam. Looking at this, and just bring out this, that it's HDMI 1 only as far as our internal daisy chaining. So if you're not getting into complicated processing and trying to just do simple 2x2s and 3x3s, we do that using HDMI 1 input, as well as the media player, the OPS slot, or DVI, when using the HDMI output. And then conversely, for the DisplayPort 1, we use the DisplayPort output. And then rounding out on the last slide, what the HDMI loop through gave us is that we could really have a little bit better handle on HDCP compliant. So I circled off all this chart. The only thing that's really important here is that, and I should really circle the UHD 60, but at UHD 30 and UHD 60, the total amount of monitors that can be connected together and support HDCP is 5, right? So that's really what we're kind of thinking is a 2x2. And what that means, HDCP, is meaning we're doing anything that has content protection. Without it, we will not get an image. So it is very important that we have that capability. But when we get into more complicated designs, utilizing some of the internal tile matrix to make blocks of 2x2s at, let's say, a UHD resolution can really be beneficial when using more expensive processors. Again, it's a longer, deeper conversation for another time, but I just wanted to bring it up that we've enhanced that. And then tile cut, again, is that and kind of a new feature here, that if we take on the left, we take an image that would be the complete image. If we would have put that on a 2x2 in portrait, again, the displays would then take that content and display it properly. If we had a 1x2, we were going to be more of an aesthetic, or maybe it's a retail application, and we played that same content, we would only see half of the image, right? It would just display the left half. With tile cut, I'm able basically to manipulate the content, tell it where to cut the information. So in this case, I take the center of the image, which is the woman in the coat, and I place that in the middle of our content. So it's kind of a simple way to manage some content when using non-traditional 16:9 video walls. And just really quickly, I mean, just more enhanced features. I kind of touched upon that, but if you had to use the color calibration, these monitors can self-calibrate with just USB sensor into each monitor. And we also have the ability to self-calibrate and adjust for uniformity in the corners. So it's kind of another new, really cool feature. And moving on to the roadmap slides, the 46 is going to continue. As you see, it's in the lineup, so no changes there. The 49-inch will be ending as we move through this year. We haven't seen the demand as high for the 49, maybe a panel supply thing going on, so that's going to be discontinued. We'll continue with the 55s and the 46s. So in the 55 here, you can see everything is status quo. That's shipping. So it's the 3.5 millimeter and the 0.88 millimeter, and there's no changes there. So everything that we have now is current. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Adam to round it out, finish it up.
All right, Dave, thank you. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about solution components, OPS, SDM, and RPI. For those that don't know, for a long time, both in our displays as well as our projectors, we had a lot of those that offered OPS slots. The Intel spec, open pluggable specification, is what it stands for. But as you can see, there are some limitations, especially around resolution. This has really made us think of where we want to go in the future to be able to offer those expanded resolutions. And that's really how we got into SDM. Again, another Intel spec, but as you can see, the first thing that really jumps out to me is that resolution of being able to support up to 8K at 60 Hertz. So you'll see this as we move forward, and there's really a lot more flexibility when we talk about SDM versus the older OPS. Just from a physical standpoint, very similar size cards when you look at the SDM-L, but when you go to the SDM-S, you can see it's a third of the size of what we had with the total OPS. So a lot more functionality and a lot more options of what we can offer when we start to look at this. Just some pictures of where we're at or where we're going. Again, you can see SDM-S on the far left, SDM-L in the middle, and then the older OPS standard. One thing that you'll notice is with the old OPS standard, the spec called that it had to be encased in metal. SDM-S and SDM-L allows us to do away with that encasement of metal, and we can do a lot more things as far as that goes, especially when it comes to heat management. The one thing that you'll see here is with SDM-S and SDM-L as well as OPS is the difference as far as voltage. OPS was a 19 volt standard, and you can see both SMDs or SDM, I've got a typo there, I apologize, is only 12 volts with reduced wattage overall. So again, OPS isn't going away immediately. So the next 3 generation of OPS CPUs that we're bringing out and are currently shipping over now, you can see on the far left-hand side that full really horsepower CPU of an i7 with 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig hard drive. And really the features I want to call out here that most of you probably are aware of is features that we're adding in such as vPro and TPM. So for those that don't know what those feature sets are, this allows you to really remotely control this CPU even if the display is turned off. You can still access the CPU, and you can even partition the hard drive to where if you had a software failure or an operating system failure, you could restore that CPU 100%, including whatever operational software you needed on it remotely. So no rolling of trucks, nobody necessarily going on site. So we feel like those are really important feature sets. But again, we understand that not everybody needs an i7, what we really consider the race car of CPUs. So if you look at the far right-hand side, we also have a very economical AMD A8 with less feature sets. But again, depending on what you need and what the use case is of your project, we've got the right solution. And then going into SDM-L of kind of what we're thinking about there when we come to CPUs, again, same mindset, giving you really the tools in your toolbox to decide what CPU you need based off of the use case. Not everybody needs the i7. You might be able to do away with an i3 or even go to an Intel Celeron. So again, these are the choices that we're giving you as we move forward. Just again, some roadmap stuff. We won't go through this line by line. One thing that I like to point out here is the OPS dock. A lot of people forget about this. So even if you have a retrofit situation or a display or a projector from NEC that doesn't have a built-in OPS slot, you can use this OPS dock and take advantage of all those OPS features with this accessory device. Expandability, a big one for OPS has always been that ATSC IPTV tuner, as well as HD-based T receivers. Those will continue, as well as from our broadcast partners, being able to have that SDI native input into our projectors, as well as our flat panels. You'll see this continue as we move forward as well. So a couple of the things that we're looking at as we transition to SDM, we're going to make a backwards compatible adapter that you see there at the top center. So again, we're not leaving anybody hopefully in a lurch to where you can't upgrade or you can't backwards compatible into this new feature set. So as you walk your way around, NDI is a streaming protocol that many of you are probably aware of. 12G SDI, again, for those broadcast applications, SDVOE, HD-based T, and then really what we feel is still important is that NTSC and ATSC tuner. We still have a lot of demand for those types of tuners. And then really one of the big questions we still always get is like with the Crestron, the D80, are we transitioning that over to SDM? And the answer is yes. We'll continue to work with Crestron as we have in the past to transition that over as well. And then we go into Raspberry Pi, and this is really our answer to system on chip. As many of you know, a lot of the system on chip platforms that are currently in the marketplace are very restricted. You can't just load any piece of software that you want. It has to be through their process or through their rights and regulations, so to speak, to get onto that platform. We really feel that Raspberry Pi, as that many of you know, is an open platform. So if you want to even go write your own code or your own piece of software, you're absolutely free to do that. So that's really what we're seeing, and we'll continue to support RPI as we move forward. Again, just some roadmap information. Built-in media players. So we've had media players built into our displays for really a long time, but we're starting to see this transition over to the next generation as well to give you more features and more tool sets as you look. And really the point that I want to focus here is the alliance with a lot of our CMS partners. So through those CMS partners, our media player is now a registered player on their software platforms as well, to where, again, you don't need a third-party box or another device to register as a player. You can use the display itself to register as that player with most of the CMS partners that we work with, and that list continues to grow every day. And then finally, with just touch. So we still have IR touch capabilities and even PCAP technology based on, again, on what you need. IR technology, as you know, typically up to 10 points of touch is all you're going to get. So where if you need more, we can go into PCAP type technology. This is going to give you up to 80 points of simultaneous touch. As well, this is going to give you the response time and the tactile feel that you're used to with your cell phones or with your tablets. It's going to be very close to that same technology. And again, just touch roadmap information. And really the story here is that we're going to continue to support touch not only in single panes of glass, so to speak, or single displays, but keep in mind that we can also do this for our video wall technology. And finally, just a little plug for what Dave mentioned earlier, the agenda for our next webinar series that'll start the middle of May. And we're really going to deep dive into the video wall products and some of the feature sets and really some of the questions that we get a lot of, but we feel like people maybe are afraid to ask or that they're not sure what the pros and cons of certain situations are. This webinar will surely answer those questions. So with that, I will open it back up to Gina. Gina, I've got 4 questions on my side. If you don't have any, we can start rattling through these.
Thank you, Adam and Dave. Okay, Adam, I guess if you want to go through and answer those questions, can you see them? You said you can see them?
Yeah, so Dave, if you're on, I'll take the first one and then I'll give the other 2 for you. So the question is, are the updates on the menus in the Haze going to be retrofitted to the V-Series displays? So the answer to that is no. So there'll be the transition path that we talked about, going from the V-Series to that M or MA series or ME series based off of use case. So there will not be any retrofitting to those feature sets working backwards. The next question for you, Dave, also for the video wall displays, do you see any requirement for 4K?
So I think and Peter, thanks for that question, but if you're at saying 4K per the screen, you know, what we're seeing now is the ability to be able to input 4K into our screens and be able to do 2x2 matrices to make it a 4K block and not 4K. For certain applications, I would imagine for high resolution video wall applications, there could be a need for 4K, and it's something that we'll look at in the roadmap going forward, as 4K panels will be what's going to be available, so that there'll probably be a natural transition into that. But so I mean, that's kind of where we're at now, and I think in some applications there is a need for 4K displays.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And then the last one that I have is, when you purchase a kit, does it come with the colorimeter and the probe? And I'm assuming Peter's talking about our bundle kits. So you want to answer that one, Dave?
So Peter, with if you go and look at our kits, so we have 2x2 and 3x3 kits that are all kitted up. They come with all the mounting hardware, the monitors, cables, overframe bezel kits if applicable, and then also the color calibrator and sensor is all part of in a remote kit, as well as some trip light power surge protectors as well. Don't think I listed everything out, but that's kind of the kit. And I will say, if anyone looking to go off and go into a custom kit, we certainly can take those and we can make with our solutions team, we can build out 4x4, 5x5, 1x10s, whatever it is you need, and put it into a kind of a solution that makes it easy for you to then present it back to your customer or put it into your design.
Peter has given me the written thumbs up. So thanks, Dave. I think we've answered all his questions. So with that, Gina, I'll turn it back to you. Do you have any other questions on your side that we can't necessarily see?
I do. All right. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
The first one is, what is the future of ATSC, NTSC tuner options?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. It's really what we talked about with SDM-L and SDM-S. As we transition over to that new platform, we will support both ATSC and NTSC tuners, as we still see a huge need for both of those tuner sets.
Okay, thank you. The next one, can you add a protective overlay to a display without touch? Example, high-use entryway to prevent damage to signage applications.
Yeah, so great question. We absolutely can. We can work with partners such as TSI, and we can use several different glasses, including Gorilla Glass, that will give you a protective overlay of that display for damage or vandalism without adding the expense of touch overlay, either IR or PCAP.
The next one that I have, with the new UN series, can I still calibrate the walls as I have in the past?
Dave, you want that one?
Yeah, so while they do come pre-calibrated, and the idea is to not have to be able to calibrate them, certainly in certain maybe applications, if you needed to change calibration, absolutely, everything works the same. It's actually an improved process and quicker. So the answer is yes.
Who are the current NEC RPi partners, Raspberry Pi?
Okay, I'll take that one. So it's a growing list, but just to name a few, we're working with companies like InfoBeamer, Lava Controls, Intevi, Rise Vision. Those are some of the ones that pop to the immediate top of my head. But if you go to our website, there's a full list of what partners we work with. And again, it seems to grow by the day of what those partners are.
Okay. Can custom overlays be provided for video walls or larger displays?
Yes. So as we talked about at the end of the presentation, we can do touch overlays for video walls and even our direct view LED offerings. We can offer touch capabilities to all of those products.
Will Crestron's NVX be supported on the new SDM platform?
Short answer is yes. We're working with Crestron. They are in the engineering process of really taking what we've developed with the D80 and the OPS platform and transitioning that to the new SDM platform with hopefully some new bells and whistles. If I know Crestron, they're always looking to make things better, so I'm sure they will.
And then, can I take a UN series video wall and toggle tile matrix on and off to create one large image or several smaller images per display?
Dave?
Yeah, so with tile matrix, it's not it comes out of the box as a global setting, but by changing it per input, you have the ability to then toggle it on and off so that you can have tile matrix on for one large image and then go to a different input and have it set as individual screens with individual sources. So absolutely, you have plenty of functionality within the tile matrix. Yes.
Thank you. And then there's one that came through in the Q&A. Adam, I don't know if you can see that one.
Is that the one? Yeah.
I was getting ready to respond to that one. If you didn't have any other ones, Gina.
No, that is it. I'll turn it over to you for that one.
So the question is, are there compatibility issues with your implementation of HD-based-T? So no, we're going to use standards-based HD-based-T, and we actually work with their alliance to make sure that our products are in compliance with the standard. We don't add any header or footer data that would make our streams proprietary.
Okay, and those are all the questions that I have. That I see.
Well, Gina, I see one other one I don't think we covered. It's that what it says. Do I understand correctly that HDCP 2.2 content at HD resolutions will not display on a 3x3 tile matrix video wall when using HDMI 1 in and out as on the the UN series? And the question is, because of the limitations and the number of times that we can jump from one display to the next, to do it on a 3x3, we would add in a 1x2 HDCP distribution amplifier so that we could then send a direct signal to 5 monitors on one leg and 4 on the other to complete 9. So because the monitors, the tile matrix, they don't need to be looped through to work. They can be direct runs. So that's how we would do it, and then that would satisfy HDCP using a UHD at 60 signal.
Gina, what else we got?
That's all I see. That's all I have. I'm not seeing any other questions unless I missed something, but.
Yeah, that's all the ones I see. But from just my standpoint, I appreciate everybody's time today. As Dave has mentioned a couple of times, if you've got more in-depth questions or really any questions at all, feel free to reach out to Dave or myself or your local rep. We all work very closely together, and we'd be happy to discuss any of your projects or needs or concerns that you may have moving forward.
All right, yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you. I do want to mention, though, before we conclude, that we do have a CTS course coming up on Monday, which is Understanding Today's Multi-Venue Projection Technology, that is worth 1 RU credit. So again, thank you to Dave and Adam, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And we do look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Stay safe and be well, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.